As the title suggests, this is the presentation, or what I'm going to talk about today is based on my the fieldwork which I conducted for my doctoral dissertation. And I have conducted my fieldwork in Nagpur. It was an 8-month-long fieldwork. It was done intermittently, 2 months, 2 months, 2 months, because that's how sort of qualitative research is done. You go to field, do some interviews, do some observations, come back, and then kind of sort of revisit what you have collected, fine-tune your conceptual framework, then go back again. So a good amount of time I have spent talking to last mile municipal actors. And the second term or concept there, web of accountability relationships, that is what I've focused on, that how do accountability relationships manifest on ground? And then what does it mean for urban reforms? So I was just wondering that will I be able to share anything new with people already working in this space? But let's see. And if we move to next slide, so there's a couplet from Nida Fazli, which sort of I have included it for my own solace, that even if I don't share anything new with you, it reads like Naksha utha ke koi naya shahar dhoondiye, is shahar mein to sabse mulaqat ho gayi. So that's what researchers do, that they look for new naksha, new conceptual framework, new theoretical lens. And then when they see, oh, this context is saturated, they look for new context to find out if they can kind of see anything new in that context. So I would try my best to kind of share new stories, new insights with you. But this is a caveat which I have added, that's what I have been doing as a researcher. So you see, it's sort of a kind of a story from field, that when I was researching accountability and I went to one of the sanitation inspectors to interview, and I introduced myself that I'm doing a PhD and I have come to interview you. So somehow he understood it as that I have come to interview him to admit him in a PhD program. So for 15 minutes, that conversation went on, and he said, let me call 2 of my colleagues also. They also want to do the PhD. And he didn't give me the chance to clarify that, no, I haven't come to recruit you for PhD, but it's like, I am a PhD student and I have come to interview you. So I mean, these are the things which happen on field when you go, and sort of these kind of things happen. And then when I went to meet a ward councillor, she assumed that I have come to interview her, like a video recorded interview, and I'm from media and all. So she asked me on phone that, how much do you charge for that? So I said, no, I don't charge for the interview. This is my, dissertation thing, and I'm doing a field work, and therefore I'm interviewing you. And she didn't believe that. When I went to her house to interview her, she sort of came all dressed up. And so she had that assumption that it would be video recorded and all, but she could have been normal as well. So I mean, these are the kind of things when you go to field, all kind of surprises greet you. And so these are, I mean, I just wanted to say that when you do qualitative research, you are you have to be embedded in that place. And also the actors whom you are meeting are sort of very normal people. They are not, say, researchers like me who have done literature review and know all the concepts sort of which I'm going to feel. So there you have to fine-tune your language and then talk to them in the way they would understand. And so this is just to set the stage that here what we are entering into, they're all normal people. And then we, as researcher and analysts, we go to field, we have all these fancy concepts, but they kind of don't help in collecting information. So before kind of as we'll move ahead, I'll just kind of give you another illustration to make what web of accountability relationships mean, and then we'll move towards my framework, which I have used, and then more kind of examples from the field. So say if there was an issue in a slum of poor quality water. So so it was earlier in the 2-3 households. One of them goes to the office, the service point manager's office. It is a contracted out service in Nagpur. It is sort of not contracted out, actually, it is public-private partnership between Nagpur Municipal Corporation and Orange City Waterworks. So that is the company which provides water in Nagpur. So they go, that person, those 2-3 individuals, they go to the service point manager's office and they say that we have that issue. So for that day, the person provides a remediation that, okay, take a tanker that day if you haven't got the water, adequate water or good quality water, and that gets redressed. In 2-3 days, another that whole street has poor quality water issue. I mean, that is because that your water supply line is going parallel to the sewer line, and they're all old water lines. Rehabilitation is not done. It gets affected. Now whole street is affected. And then what do these people do with this experience that, oh, we had it? He addressed it, but it is not getting addressed. They now mobilize and they go to a local political actor. And then who then takes a dharna out to the service point manager's office, and there is a big drama there. And then this person knows that the network engineer and service point manager knows that it is not going to get addressed sort of so immediately as they're expecting. So he just specifies them, sends them back that, okay, promises some kind of remediation. And then kind of the story goes on. And that issue continued for 3 months. So long as that first the whole flushing was done. Then with flushing, the water was good for 10 days. Then again, there was an issue. And then they ultimately, finally, they decided when there was a lot of pressure to build a new sewer line separate from the water line, right? So this, in a way, at every stage, the extent and form of remediation is changing, if you see, right? So it started with some kind of explanation that, okay, it's not because of this, it's not because of from our side, etc., etc. Then you give some kind of immediate redressal, and then it kind of moves up, right? Over a period of 3 months. And at every stage, the citizens or the consumers are having to involve different political actors, right? I mean, at every stage, so that kind of hierarchy is going on. So this is what we call as web of accountability relationships. So here citizens are demanding account from network engineers, they are going to municipal councilors, they are going to local political actors, etc. Yeah, so this is what I would present, the accountability relationship framework, the context, field, and case, some fieldwork snippets, and then key insights or argument based on those snippets. Yeah. So this is often kind of, when we have to look at it, that what is accountability, it is often confused with its synonyms. Responsibility, answerability, responsiveness, liability, control, obligation, etc. All of these terms are kind of used interchangeably with accountability. Then often it is used with some adjectives: democratic accountability, political accountability, administrative, financial, etc. And it is often mixed with other concepts such as transparency, democracy, institutional checks and balances, etc. As if that this accountability itself doesn't have its own personality or doesn't have its own inherent meaning. What it results into is the fragmentation of accountability literature. You'll have to just click. Fragmented literature on accountability and challenges in empirically studying accountability. So this is sort of the academic part, what I'm addressing, which is that how accountability can be studied empirically. So what do we do? That we move towards, this is what these researchers have called as a minimal conceptual consensus. So we consider accountability as a relationship between two actors. So this is a definition, this we are calling as relational definition of accountability, which defines some internal structural elements of accountability, that it exists between two actors. One actor is accountee, who has an obligation to provide account. The other one is an accounter, who sort of demands account and can evaluate, pass judgment, or levy sanction on the accountee, right, when not satisfied with the account provided. So this definition of accountability can be used or operationalized across the types of accountability with those different adjectives: democratic, political, administrative, managerial, etc. Then it kind of differentiates accountability from other kind of the synonyms which it is used with: answerability, responsibility, etc. So, but what we have done, that we have sort of added few other elements in this definition to build the framework. So I'll move to the next slide, which is the kind of questions which I have tried to address with my with my doctoral work are these: that how do accountability relationships manifest during the delivery of municipal services, and how do different types of accountability relationships interact? So often we just, whenever we are focusing on things, so either we focus on some kind of accountability intervention, be it say some mobile application for public grievances, or some would just focus on the role of municipal councilors, someone would just focus on the civil society actors. But then all of these different accountability relationships interact with each other on ground as municipal services are delivered. Next slide, please. So this is how the framework looks like. Yeah.
Can I put it on it?
No. Yeah. So this is what we have done is that we have made accountability relationship. We are assuming or we're considering that accountability relationship is contingent to duty relationship. What is duty relationship? It is like there are these municipal actors who are the frontline managers, frontline workers, the administrators, service providers, municipal councillors. All of them have some kind of duties, well-defined duties, and then to perform those duties, they have some tasks. So each of these things are defined. Once when those are not defined, they create municipal inadequacies in municipal services, which kind of creates which obstructs the tangible benefits which citizens get, right? And then accountability relationship comes into picture. So we are sort of making, by making accountability relationship contingent to duty relationship, we are making it more tangible, sort of more visible, and what exactly accountability looks like. Yeah. For this, that definition, yeah, hold on here. So there are two actors, accounter and accountee. Accounter demands the account. So accounter who is demanding the account may have the right or may not have the right to demand the account. And the accounter has the power or authority to exercise, like to demand account from the accountee. Similarly, in case of accountee, the accountee carries the obligation to provide account, and then accountee may exert power to resist giving the account, right? So this sort of what we are bringing in here is this element of power and authority to kind of see in this relationship. Yeah, and there could be different sources and forms of power, and then accordingly the types of accountability would vary, could be informal or formal. This is the account giving. So here what we are saying that there could be three types of account giving. One is this normal routine account giving. One could be through invocation, which is like sort of explanation and remediation. So these are the three types. The fourth is reparation, but reparation I haven't so observed on my field, so I'm just limiting it to the normal reporting, explanation, and remediation. And then these are the sub processes which are involved in this account giving and demanding process. So often just monitoring is considered as accountability, but monitoring in itself is not accountability. It is just part of the accountability relationship, right? Similarly, when the accounter is not satisfied with the account provided, accounter may levy sanction, and there are different content and form of sanctions. So all these elements I have looked into my field, like tried to sort of understand that how these kind of internal structural elements of accountability function. Yes, please go ahead. So now I'll just provide some details about the context, field, and case. So can we just be there? So this image, as you see, this is, I would cross this street every day when I would go for my fieldwork. It was very close to my place where I was staying. As you can see, there is this Swachh Bharat, Swachh Sarvekshan 2022 banner there. There are these two stray animals, and then there is a black spot of garbage there. Now, some of my respondents called this National Cleanliness Survey, which is Swachhata Sarvekshan, as temporary accountability. So they would say that whenever these the national teams would come, the survey teams, then you would have the cleaning up of the black spots. Otherwise, it is going to remain like this. And then these stray animals, then recently you would have seen you would have listened to in media or observed it that the stray dog was a big issue. Similarly, these stray cattle are a big issue. So they kind of come here whenever there is a black spot, and that kind of spreads. So this has sort of remained one thing. The other is this, there is a rehabilitation work going on for waterworks. And then this has remained like this for 3 months. And so the water supply is hampered, the way to the locality is obstructed. Now, so what I have done is that in my field, I have followed all these inadequacies to identify who is not performing what and why in their own perspective. Like, why are they not doing it? What are their accounts? So this is just a glimpse of that duty relationships not getting fulfilled.
Your phone?
Yeah. And this is the context in which we are looking at it. So there's this 74th constitutional amendment, devolution of function funds, functionaries. What it promises: government closer to citizen, enhanced accountability. The other one is the term which was mentioned, urban reforms, which particularly for this work is limited to these aspects, that we are shifting from traditional public management to new public management, which means there should be more managerial autonomy, there should be outcome-based performance. And from accountability point of view, it promises voice and exit and direct accountability. And similarly, there's a talk about citizens or civil society actors' participation in planning and more citizen oversight. From accountability point of view, more direct accountability and strengthened vertical accountability. So this is kind of the things which are happening in the sort of setting the context where accountability is entering in these things.
Move forward.
Yeah.
I just got feedback on the call saying what they can see most clearly are those chairs. So I'm going to ask someone to, Anshul, if you could just move those out of the way. And I'll try to zoom the camera in on.
Okay.
You can go ahead. It's okay. I can see the video.
And this is what my field looks like. Yeah? So there's Nagpur Municipal Corporation, which is providing these services. And I have these two services, which I have covered: solid waste, mostly cleanliness, which is street sweeping and door-to-door waste collection and transportation, and sanitation, and water supply. The actors whom I have interacted with are municipal councilors, municipal bureaucracy, and concessionaire, which is the service provider. So all levels of actors in that, from administrators to the frontline managers and workers, citizens and social actors. And this is what is the status of service delivery there, that in solid waste, street sweeping and sewer line repair and maintenance is directly provided by the NMC. So there are no contractual worker there. They are the employees of the municipal corporation who are called as cleanliness workers. And door-to-door waste collection and transportation is contracted out. In water supply, there is in Nagpur, there is a 24/7 water supply project. It is a sort of a, I mean, I kind of, now I have come to know that there are a couple of other such projects as well, but this is full-fledged privatization of water supply has happened only in Nagpur. It's a public-private partnership between NMC. NMC has formed a the SPV, which is NECL, National Environmental Service Limited. And OCW is the company which has entered into the contract with NMC to rehabilitate, create the water supply infrastructure, operate, maintain, and manage waterworks, and also treat and supply water. Yeah. So this is what Nagpur looks like. There are 10 administrative zones in Nagpur. The first image, they are all called as Dharampet, Dhantoli, Satranjipura, Gandhibagh, 10 administrative zone. Each administrative zone has as the next image says, the numbers are there, sort of little less visible, 35, 36, like that. So they call as Prabhag, what I'm calling as division. So each has 4 divisions. And so say if 35 is there, so then each division has 4 wards. So likewise, there are some 160 wards in Nagpur. So this is a Prabhag Paddhati, which is kind of unique to Maharashtra, Pune, Nagpur, where they have 4 ward councillors in 1 ward. So if it is 35A, then 35A has 4 ward councillors, and whole of the ward has voted for that thing. So whole of ward votes in priority for 4, right? This is an example of the command area. So this I just wanted to show that the waterworks functions according to the command area of the elevated service reservoir and not according to the administrative zones. So in a command area, there can be an overlap of multiple administrative zones. So say one ESR can be serving to 3 administrative zones. So that kind of creates another sort of layer of complexity, that you have ward councillors from different administrative zones, and different the employees of the bureaucracy are involved in that. Yeah. And this is I was told by Ame in the beginning that this is not clear. So, but it need not to be clear. It just shows that that's how the accountability relationships are spread all across on last mile. On the left side, when you see a block, that would be the last mile of service delivery and accountability relationships. But this is just to show, you see, that it's not linear. The accountability relationships are not linear. There are multiple actors, and one cannot a priori assume that that's how an accountability relationship is going to be, because it emerges on ground. So this figure is just telling you that it's sort of, there are multiple relationships flowing all across. Yeah. So, and then when that model is operationalized or that framework is operationalized, I have just given one example here of one duty of municipal councillors. So this duty of municipal councillors is to monitor an evaluation of delivery of municipal services in their ward. One way, the institutional way to do it is ward committee, which is what generally the state municipal acts prescribe. But that is not what is there in Nagpur. None of the ward councillors I interviewed have formed the ward committee. They are the intermediaries in a way. So they are expected to do this monitoring and evaluation on their own. Now, what does this mean in terms of accountability? When they are on field, it causes the latent manifestation of accountability relationship between them and frontline actors. So how do frontline actors put it? Say, कि ये जनप्रतिनिधि है करके. So they look at जनप्रतिनिधि in a with some respect, and there is also an angle of sanction, because Janprathinidhi can ask question in the general body meeting and can also recommend some kind of departmental sanction towards the that frontline actor or manager. So this latent factor is there, and therefore, due to that, the frontline worker is sort of performing its task, which is giving tangible benefit to the citizen, right? So this performance of duty is ensuring some kind of tangible benefit to the citizen. But when that does not happen, then citizens either directly invoke accountability relationship with municipal councillor, asking them that why are they not touring their area, why are they not coming to their locality, etc. Or some active citizen in that locality becomes the invoking actor, or these citizens go through some volunteer party worker, or they go to some opposition party worker to invoke that accountability. So in that case, these actors become the invoking actors. And then the accountability is demanded for why the municipal councillor is not performing its duty, which is monitoring and evaluation of delivery of services. Yeah. So the inadequacies which are caused because of that duty deficiencies are the following: that there is delay in completion of work, there is recurrence of the existing inadequacy, the work which is completed is not adequate, and there is non-responsiveness of municipal bureaucracy. This is when the municipal councillor is not doing its own duty. The kind of explanations which municipal councillors provide, that their ward is big, they don't get enough salary so that they can bear the cost of traveling across the ward, because some ward, they may have to travel 20 to 25 kilometers, 30 kilometers a day, if every day they have to cover all localities. Then they consider the distance of a locality from their residence. So they may go some nearby 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer, and they may not go to far off localities. The voting preferences of a locality. So if they are aware that some locality doesn't vote to their party, they would deprioritize that locality. The frequency and nature of complaints. So they sort of see every day they are receiving like hundreds of complaints. So they have to prioritize, and they then that's they have this sort of their own mental model that which complaint may need their presence there. And then behavior of locality dwellers. So they have this mindset of punishing some locality dwellers if they don't behave well, as in they abuse, they shout, they mob their offices, then they again deprioritize those localities. The remediation which they provide are these. So they have, since they are not able to go, they have their public relations office, which they well publicize. They expect people to come to their offices. They have volunteer networks. So this is such a interesting thing I found, that one of the ward councillors I interviewed, she said that mere 4-5 vishwasu log hai. Someone she trusts, not part of her political party or her regular volunteers. उनको मैंने बोला है WhatsApp group बनाओ लोकेलिटी वाइज, और फिर उनसे मैं सुबह लेती हूँ अपडेट. वो मुझे व्हाट्सएप पे सारा भेजते हैं एरिया का अपडेट, और जहां लगता है कि मुझे कुछ करना चाहिए मैं करती हूँ. So it is like that she has her own 4-5 volunteers. She has asked them to make WhatsApp groups. She gets update through those WhatsApp groups regularly, and then kind of directs them wherever her intervention is needed, which is like these streetwise WhatsApp groups, accessibility on phone, and cordial relationship with frontline bureaucracy. So this is one thing which I have found, that you see, often all the direct accountability interventions which we talk about, be it public grievance registration systems, mobile based, or some kind of human tracking systems like smartwatches in some cities for frontline workers, etc. None of them are effective. Reason being that what I was telling just before this talk started, that there's a kind of a mutually empathetic relationship between the frontline workers and the municipal councillors. And administrators are seen as outsiders because they are IAS and they are appointed by the state government. They will come and go and we have to live together. That kind of bonhomie is there at the last mile, among the last mile actors. So they are kind of protecting each other's back, cooperating with each other, and the real sort of influence and control over the frontline bureaucracy is with the municipal councillors. Right? So that's what I mean, that they build, and these relationships are built over a period of time. So a ward councillor, if a ward councillor in a region in a ward is there for 4 terms, 3 terms, and then all frontline bureaucrats, they are not transferred. So even chief sanitation officer or a network engineer would be there in that ward like for 20 years. So it's a very long-term relationship which they have developed. So this in a way affect the departmental accountability relationships, or the the control of administrators, so to say. All right, so this is how the ward councillors look like, and in the first photograph you would see 24/7 dhoka hai, dhakka maro mauka hai. This is for that OCW, the water privatization. This is not when the water supply was privatized. This is 12 years after that. This happened when I was on field. But I haven't clicked this photograph. This was posted on social media by the ward councillor herself. But so these are the kind of things you see. So what I'm arguing here is this, that the institutional role of ward councillors is not adequately defined. So they on field, they are trying to find their own mandate. They are trying to define their own role. And therefore, all of these things we see, had there been some kind of a formal legislative role for them, and had their accountability role been strengthened, then somewhere I would assume that this would not have happened. The other one, this photo I have taken at 6:30 a.m. in the morning. The ward councillor is sitting, because this is a whole administrative zone, not just a locality. A whole administrative zone where water supply is obstructed and water is being supplied through tankers. So you don't live in Whitefield, so you won't know the tanker water problem. Here, Kaveri water comes in this part of the city, but there it's a problem. So here, whole administrative zone gets water through tanker, and here he has taken the charge of coordinating it. Why? Because the OCW's employee would come at 7:30, and his constituents, because most of them are daily wage workers and they have to leave by 7:30, they need water at 5:30 in the morning. He took that responsibility. So there's this side. So there's this, recently one paper has come on this effect, the effect between, in the relationship between the municipal councillors and the citizens or their constituents. So a kind of this empathy, or this kind of close, so intimate relationships are also there. I mean, so that affection is there. And out of that, this person is sitting here and doing this work. The other one is, if you see the councillor is sitting on sofa, there is an old lady who is also sitting on sofa, right? So this, for this councillor, one of the ladies said कि मैं उसका collar पकड़ूंगी ना जाके, मैं network engineer के पास क्यों जाऊंगी? So this is a complaint because her water connection got broken because of this cementing of the road, and that was not getting repaired for 2 months. And she said, I went there, this didn't happen, and then I have come to here. So he was explaining to that lady that तुम क्यों गई वहां पे? वो मुझे बोलना था, तुमने वहां कंप्लेन किया, फिर वो वहां गया और वहां से फिर यहाँ आएगा. मुझे बोलती तो मैं सीधे फोन करता उसको और काम करा देता. So he's telling कि I would have called the frontline worker directly and would have gotten it done. You went to the office and it took such a long route. And then he says ऐसे काम थोड़ी होता है. So basically as if he knew that it won't happen, right? So but that is one part of the story. But the other part of the story is, I mean, these are, someone quantitative researcher would say that it's just sort of my own biases, or I'm extrapolating. But then the lady is sitting on sofa with the elected representative, right? The other thing here is this, that other thing which I observed in the zonal delegate's office, who is a municipal corporation's employee and a senior level engineer, where a person has to enter. So an old lady is standing outside the office waiting for the engineer to come. Once when the engineer comes, she very gradually is progressing towards that, and then standing there with folded hands, and then kind of then putting our own demand. So this is a way, I mean, in a way to just to kind of, I am underlining this difference just to illustrate why citizens prefer to go to their elected representatives or the political actors and not follow the formal channels of the channeling their grievances. Because this kind of unfriendliness or kind of this hierarchy exists there. Now, this is example from water. These are the network engineers who have gone on a complaint, but on the insistence of a political party worker. So this is a private company. They have their own formal complaint channel through phone. I went across this complete area with a water meter reader, and I couldn't find a family who was even aware about that phone number that they could call and complain. Right. So they were either telling the water meter reader, or they were telling some local political actor, or they were directly going to the service point manager's office. But they were not aware. And interestingly, that number is there on water bill. So when they were made aware that this is on the water bill, then they were like, "Arey, ye kaam waam nahi karta hai. This doesn't work." Right. And then they kind of moved ahead. But what do? Are they really solving the problem? So three types of responses I have categorized. One is explanation. So first they try to kind of tell that why you're getting low water, or why you're getting poor quality water or low pressure water. So they'll say this happened, that happened. Their second level of response is they promise some kind of remediation. So they would say that, okay, it will happen tomorrow, or it will happen a day after, etc. Something like that. And then their third response, it's kind of an ultimate response where they reframe the issue. So the citizen or the consumer is saying that I'm not getting enough water. So they will say, no, you are getting enough water. See, 135 LPCD is the norm. Just check your tank. Are you getting your 5 people? Are you getting that much water? But here point is this, that I have a water meter and I am ready to pay. You give me the water, right? But you are not doing your other duty, which is the proactive rehabilitation of the water infrastructure or creation of the new water infrastructure. Just because you're not doing that duty on time, I wouldn't claim that it's not happening. On time, you're reframing the issue itself. But then what do they say? The network engineers say. So their thing is this, that our job is to implement 24/7 water project. However, we are all the time on field listening to abuses from the people and municipal councillors. This is not a job of an engineer, but a councillor. So you see the way they are having to sort of suffer through that thing. So this is what they have there in their mind, because they are hired by an organization to fulfill the organizational goal, which is implementing the 24/7 project, but not to do all of this. They're not prepared for that. So this is what we are calling as that their duties are techno-managerial, but they are having to play the role of political managers, the politico managers. So what happens with them? That they have this conflict between their organizational goals, demands of responsiveness from citizens and municipal councillors. There are multiple legacy challenges. So they are not building a new water supply infrastructure. It is already existing. They are rehabilitating some and they are creating new wherever it is needed. So those legacy challenges are there on the infrastructure side. And then there are these role conception and capacity gaps. So most of them are new engineers. They don't even know the maps. So this is what one of the municipal councillors told me, कि वो उनको आता क्या है, वो जगह-जगह गड्ढे करके चले जाते हैं. How would they find a leakage, right? The equipments are less, so equipments are not issued on time, but there is a pressure to address the issue. There is a leakage. They have to find out where the leakage is, and they don't have the map. Now, what do? The network engineers. Dig. That's what they do. Now the digging has another issue. Most of the roads in Nagpur are now cemented. So when they have to be digged, you need special equipment, right? So when you see this thing is happening, so So accountability, we just kind of assume that it is just in a way a very straightforward thing, that you demand an account and you get an account. But no, that it's not happening that. It's relational in everyday contact, and there's a lot of empathy involved in that. So citizens are also not sort of riding on horses. That one of the citizens told me this sentence, that हर गुनाह की सजा फांसी नहीं होती है. So when I asked him that why are you not doing something, and वो आपका काम नहीं हो रहा है तो आप क्यों उसके पास नहीं जाते हैं and all, तो वो they are like कि उन्हें गर्दन पकड़ने की जरूरत नहीं है. So this is the kind of thing that yeah, they're understanding the other side as well, that there's a complexity involved in that. But however, I mean, that is what network engineers face on ground.
In case anyone on the call is not following Hindi, that was not every crime is punished with execution.
Yes, yeah. Please go ahead.
No, back to
next slide. Yeah. The other actor is this water meter reader. So there are many issues of inflated water bills or irregularities in water bills. This person is going 2.5 feet down in the water sump to check the water meter. This is so dark, right? He can't see the water meter there. It would be rusted, or there would be dust on that, etc., or could be submerged in water, right? But he has to do what? Click photograph, as he says. Sometimes people are not at home. Sometimes meter is not visible. What do? I have to take the reading and send pictures using the mobile application, because that's what the OCW has, mobile application. So people complain to me, I pass on the complaints to the service point manager or tell them to come to office. But he's saying that what can I do if you have issues? I have to do, and then he has to cover monthly this batch-wise meter reading rounds. 1 week he does 2-3 localities, another week he does 2-3 localities, etc. So however, still the irregularities in water bills are reported. Now what the service point manager says, that you look at the number of such instances. They are few compared to the bills generated, but they also blame the consumers for trying to manipulate the meters, causing damages, right? So here there is no malfeasance on the part of the water meter reader, but because of these issues, the water meter reading is not happening and an average bill is going to the consumer, right? So sort of everyone is giving a different account, as you can see, for the same inadequacy, because every actor is in a way at their own standpoints, right? So that's how this sort of accountability is being played out in that. So these are the few glimpses, as you can see. So this is a zone map. On the left side, water is coming directly from the feeder. On the right side, in these 3-4 command areas, the water is coming from elevated service reservoirs. So and some localities have 24/7 supply. Some localities have resisted rehabilitation. So they are getting water from some old network and they get 24/7 automatically. So this disparity is there. Now what happens because of this disparity? Citizens who are not getting water, the consumers who are not getting water, they have some standard to compare to. And they make that as a standard and then they go and argue. Yes,
so and so can get it. I can't.
मुझे क्यों नहीं?
Yeah, मुझे क्यों नहीं मिला water वहां पे? So this kind of thing happens there. So how the consumers set their standards. So they are not based on that what government, this sort of 135 LPCD or the meter based or something, what others are getting and what I am not getting, right? The second is a locality. So they have a water supply network there. They have tap connection, but they're not getting water. Why? Because there are some legacy issues, pending bills, lost records, double connections, etc. And the other one is the land tenure issues. This I found in multiple peripheral areas of the city, wherever this rural to urban change has happened, or from development authority to corporation, the plan has shifted. So there, these land tenure issues are there, and sort of since it's a private company, they are not ready to provide the water. So this is part of that administrative zone. It is tanker water. But there's another story there. You see those blue tanks? So those blue tanks are the standards of service delivery for citizens. हमारे 2 टैंक भर गए, मतलब पर्याप्त पानी आया. Do they deserve more or do they needed more? That is not part of it. तो हमारे 2 टैंक भर गए मतलब पर्याप्त पानी आया. अगर वो 2 टैंक नहीं भरे हैं तब हम question करेंगे. Yeah. So this sort of differentiated service delivery outcomes across the city, right? Because of sort of this thing, why a citizen is not demanding accountability because the citizen has different standards of duty and account both. Similarly, this other one, this is out of a service point manager's office. There's a watchman sitting there and a complainant has come. So he has become a de facto first point contact. Why? Because citizens, so he works as a compass for them. He tells them, for this you go there, for this you go there, for this you go there. This is after having one application, mobile application by Nagpur Municipal Corporation, and one this 24/7 phone-in service by the OCW, right? And this citizen works as a finance agent. He's very well aware. He earns some 1 lakh rupees a month, and he works with this sort of Kotak type of company, he told me. So this is, so generally like there's it would be a tall claim for my side to say that, but in literature, there's this conceptualization of political society and that only the poor people mobilize like this. But it is not so. As we can see that the non-institutional channels are being used by the middle income citizens as well. Yeah. So this is another glimpse. We can go ahead. So I'll move towards some of my key insights and arguments, which are so we have this centralized political administrative setup. The devolution, though constitutionally happened, but still state governments have substantial power over that. The manpower is controlled by the top administrators, administration posting, which is today's news, Delhi's judgment. So that is still controlled by the state government. The second is and then there is a centralization within the political party. So generally in urban governance, the assumption is that these elected municipal councillors would be more of the voluntary politicians. They won't be the part of the political party machine, right? But because of the centralization in the political parties, most of the ward councillors have become sort of part of the political party machine. And therefore, that is affecting their role as accountability extractors. So, for example, in context of Nagpur, where this sort of water privatization happened, water supply privatization happened, but most of the meetings are happening in the house of a senior minister who comes from Nagpur. Reason being that this it is in a way has become a dream project of a certain political party, and the institutional forums are not being used or being rendered ineffective. The general body meeting of the municipal corporation, the zone meetings, the 10 administrative zone, each zone also has a mini mayor kind of a thing where zone sabhapati is made. All of these institutional forums are not being used and something else being used because of that kind of centralization. So that is one aspect. The other is the weakly conceptualized and inadequately defined institutional role of the municipal councillors. So I was like trying to articulate that what are the duties, because that is what is an assumption in my framework, right? What are the duties of municipal councillors? And I'm like, what are they supposed to do? There is nowhere it is written. So you look at Maharashtra Municipal Corporation Act, there are only 3 lines that they have a right to ask question in the general body meeting, and then all the detailed guidelines would be prepared by the municipal secretary. What else are they expected to do, right? So the literature says that they play the role of intermediary, they do this clientelist politics, etc., etc. But you need to tell them what are they supposed to do, because they're as normal as I showed you. Then they have not crossed UPSC, or they are not members of parliament who would have that kind of imagination. They are just like newly minted, locally elected politicians. So they need some tasks, right? So therefore they find their then roles, this intermediary role, because they have to win election, they have political ambition, etc., right? And then this role conception as municipal councillor. So what do they perceive what a good municipal councillor is? So that affects their role as accountability extractors or the accounters, which is, so they have one formal role in general body meeting where they can ask questions from the administrator. Second, while they are facilitating the service delivery, they are monitoring and evaluating the service delivery that they can report. But that role gets affected because of these factors. Then the second is remediation is the link between accountability and improved service delivery. So this is often accepted as an axiom that accountability necessarily leads to service delivery improvement. But how? And that is the remediation, which is that if there is any inadequacy reported, how that inadequacy is being corrected is the remediation, right? And that connects accountability to the service delivery improvement or service delivery outcomes. Now that remediation, the form and extent of that remediation depends on these expected standards of duty and account of accounter. So if a citizen is not expecting higher standards or say some whatever standards decided of duty, then naturally that service delivery outcomes are going to be below what is expected, right?
This is your 2 drums of water example.
Yes, 2 drums of water example. So which can explain the differentiated service delivery outcomes even after the effective manifestation of accountability relationships. So it is so there's a nuance there. So I'm not saying that I'm not commenting on this relationship between accountability and performance. I am saying accountability is there and service delivery outcomes are there, but they are differentiated. So this is between the 2 extremes, we are sort of bringing this nuance there. Then the public frontline managers perceive their role as that of manager. So in case of water supply, where there's a network engineer who deals one elevated service reservoir, so that whole team has to report in a way to a zonal delegate. So there are 10 junior engineers appointed by the municipal bureaucracy. They're senior engineers, but called as junior engineers in each administrative zone who are the employees of the municipal corporation. And they are the monitoring person. They have to monitor the project. Their job is that of a regulator, but they take part, either they don't function because they don't have any work as such, right? No task to be done. Their job is monitoring, evaluation, etc. of a regulator, or they involve themselves in the everyday activities, which is वो pipe check करके आते हैं, उधर leakage आ गया है, उधर motor नहीं चली है, उधर ESR में पानी नहीं चढ़ा है. So that kind of job they would do, but that is what not their task is. So they involve themselves in activities of service delivery, but they are now expected, now that service delivery is contracted out to some other service provider, they are expected to play the role of regulator or an accounter, but that function they don't do. And then comes this network engineer's role, who are the employees of OCW or a private company. So there they are playing the role of politico managers, besides performing their techno-managerial tasks. So they maneuver the multiple accountability relationships. Who they are facing this municipal councillor who is abusing them literally. So I have observed it at multiple locations where these network engineers were abused by municipal councillors on phone, in person. You're not doing that, etc., etc. So see, this network engineer is a technical person. He would tell things in technical language that, okay, this is what happened, ye nahi hua, wo nahi hua. And municipal councillor is only interested in कि वो मेरे आदमी को पानी क्यों नहीं गया. So they have to maneuver all these things on ground. How do they do it? So that is what I mentioned earlier also. And then they give these different explanations, different promises. They reframe the issue. So with one example, I will end, which this network engineer and service point manager told me that once a municipal councillor came and then he sat on the chair and put both his legs in cross on his table and started abusing. कि ये क्यों नहीं हो रहा है, वो क्यों नहीं हो रहा है, इस तरह से. So then he said that what I did was that I said, sir, आपका file ready है. ये इस पे आपको वो chief engineer के signature लाना है. तो he said कि the moment I said कि आपको chief engineer के signature लाना है, उसके पैर नीचे चले गए. So it is like that he put down his legs and then he started talking then that अभी इसको अपन local नहीं issue address कर सकते क्या? So he asked that can we not address it on our own and why do we go there, right? So this is how they're playing it out, right? That so they are naturally in that context that municipal councillor has more power, right? That muscle power and then more ability to give these informal sanctions, verbal abuse, threat, physical violence, etc. But how a network engineer who is just an employee of a company is sort of maneuvering all of that, right? So this is not just one instance. Another instance is that one person came and started removing hairs with that, getting bald in protest that my locality is not getting water, and there are 20 people, and then press has come and the photograph is being taken. No, he's also responsible towards his company, right? This is not some kind of, he's an employee of a private corporation. So he feels threatened with all of this mahal, which say generally the other, if had it been an employee of what I found in the other services where it is directly provided and there are employees of corporation, they are least bothered. because they're used to it. I mean, they know that it's the corporation which has to handle all of it, not me. But
Their
here
expectation of protest is much higher.
Yeah. So all of these things are happening and they are having to deal with it. And so all of those, I have categorized their responses as explanations, promises, and reframing the issues. And that is it. I don't have a couplet to end it with, but I have one couplet, but I don't know it can be recited or not. But I'll still take the risk. This is by Nida Fazli. So it says, अब और बात कहने को कोई रही नहीं, चलो आओ शराब पिए. So it is part of the same ghazal that all of these things somewhere intuitively we know, right? We live in this context. So it won't be different, say in Bangalore or say in Bombay or in any other tier 2 city. But I mean, that is what the purpose of qualitative research or this kind of research is, that you try to theorize, you try to find out with that naksha and new context. So I end here. Thank you. Thank you for patient listening.
I'm going to stop sharing. I will leave it to people in the room first if they have questions. And maybe in like 5-10 minutes, I see one question already in the Q&A. I'll read those out in like 5-10 minutes. So folks in the room, you'll have first shot at any questions you might have for Priyank. Questions, comments, thoughts, responses, couplets.
As part of your work, were you able to share any of these insights with the municipal corporation or the SPV?
Oh, so their demand was contrary, that don't share it with anyone. So I couldn't share it. I mean, once when maybe my thesis comes and if I get any chance to meet them, I can. But when I got permission from them, they just gave it. They didn't ask for anything. It's like, because I was doing, I mean, this is my assumption that since I was working in Maharashtra, and I'm from IIT Bombay. So that kind of gave me some leverage there, that people were aware, the administrators, and they just signed my permission letter. But I have not been able to share. But
I imagine that they also know.
They also know, yeah. In fact, like, so this chief engineer, she's a female who heads this from municipal corporation. She guided me that which administrative zone you should take where you would find more inadequacies. So in fact, she was aware that, okay, these 3 zones are there, which are, it's completely inadequate, very difficult to handle. You go there, find out. And then he said, if you want to compare, you can go to this zone. It is kind of doing well, etc. But yeah, I mean, that's a good thought I can share.
I guess my question would be, and I have a couple of other comments, but I'll save them for like the last 2 minutes. There is a formal grievance process, right? Like yes. There is an official grievance process. So in your judgment, like, or based on your research, what happens? Like if someone files a complaint in the formal grievance process, does it work at all? Is it like 0% effective? What's the story?
So it works, but it works. So I have these 3 categories. So one category is that where no resources are required. There is a chokage in sewer line. It just requires one rod and a cleanliness worker to go there and clean it, and it gets clean, right? Similarly, I had low water today. So maybe that valveman did a mistake and didn't open the valve adequately. I get it done. The person gets it done. So all these complaints, even either reported manually, like in person or through mobile application or through phone, they're immediately addressed. Immediately, no delay in that. So even if today the garbage collection vehicle has not come, you call, the vehicle would come in an hour, right? But if the grievance is above that, which requires a major intervention, not major, like sort of a intervention above this, which is that there is a chokage and it would need that suction vehicle. Now there is only one suction vehicle in a zone, and it will do only 3 jobs in a day, given everything. So that will get delayed. So there you need different kind of leverage, and your online grievances may not work there. This online grievance mechanism may not work. So there you will have to go to sanitation inspector or municipal councillor and sort of persuade them that why is it urgent for you, right? So one reason could be that there's a resource constraint there, and that is why it is not getting addressed. The third level are where there's some kind of major expenses involved. So say if big cleaning has to be done of nala, or some construction has to come, or some chamber construction has to come in sewer, or some kind of major repair work there is in the water pipeline. If you complain online, it won't be addressed. You have to involve the ward officer and the municipal councillor. Then only your file will get made and it will go ahead. So this way, this category of grievance is there.
Yeah, that's helpful to think about. I'm hoping that some of the folks from the sanitation and water side in eGov are either on the call or I'll share the recording with them. But that is the kind of thing where even we have to think about, because we build that interface, right, where somebody would file a complaint. So what happens after? Useful. Others?
There was this example I had read about of the single window clearances for building permissions. And now you need to take permissions from various different departments. And that single window was like, you give us and we'll get it all done. And the thing that happened was, it became so sort of this. The person who is trying to build the house has given it, but he doesn't know now what to do. And he's like, tell me at least whom to approach so that I can directly go and talk to them and get this permission and whatever happens. So this sort of really brought that into perspective of how.
Yeah, so see, one of my respondents told me that, so this smartwatch is introduced in Nagpur to monitor the cleanliness workers. But still that now that smartwatch has been bypassed and still the manual attendance and manual record keeping is happening. Smartwatch is just because there's this national cleanliness survey and there are marks for technological intervention. So smartwatch is surviving. Otherwise, it has no meaning. So this respondent, who is a union leader, tells me that still that municipal councillor is taking money from the sanitation inspector. From where is that coming? It is coming from these ghost workers. Your permanent employees are not coming to work and your ghost workers are coming. As you he said it in these words, as your smartwatch, considering that I am an engineer, so he said, as your smartwatch affected this, has broken this nexus. So there where the point is. So therefore, this in accountability, we have that power thing there. So ultimately, it is manifesting as a relationship, so long as this whole thing is not getting embedded in that. So just take example of public grievance system. I am a frontline worker and I will do the work, right? But how am I getting the information? So a citizen faces an inadequacy, files a complaint using a mobile application, clicks photo, this goes to that coordination center, right? Now that coordination center, I don't have a system here. My supervisor doesn't have a system here. I don't have smartphone. I have that normal phone. My supervisor has a smartphone. So that coordinator is sending the image of that grievance to my supervisor on WhatsApp. Now that supervisor is trying to get hold of me. I'm the worker. I will do it to show me that picture that it is going to happen, or he will write it on a piece of paper that he will pass it on to me. And then I am going to do it. Right now, had that citizen directly gone to the municipal councillor would have directly called this worker that this is the grievance and you get it done. Right. So here, so somewhere, there's already some kind of structure existing there. And now this sort of the technological intervention are bringing some kind of this direct connect between here. Right. But here there's another story, which is this, that all of these grievances are getting collected in the coordination office or the command and control office. Who is observing that? Is administrator regularly checking the dashboard? So this system would sustain only with the intervention of the administrator. So what I was sharing with Amey, that there are these vertically linked accountability relationships within the department, what you call hierarchical accountability. If that is not effective, how will that become effective? If administrator is checking that dashboard, that how many complaints are coming daily, how many are getting addressed, how many are stuck, is administrator going on field and inspecting that, okay, these are the recurring grievances, or from this area there are recurring grievances, why are they not getting addressed? right? So these kind of interventions are required from the administrator side, which are not happening. So this alone won't work. I mean, so what we have to differentiate between accountability relationship and accountability interventions. So these are interventions, but they are not embedded in the accountability relationship. So they are not changing the accountability relationships adequately enough.
What your first intervention was, what you call temporary accountability.
Temporary accountability.
We have a couple of questions on the call. I can actually just pull these up. And then I saw that PRK also raised his hand. So we'll let Priyank get through the couple of questions that are in the Q&A, and then PRK, I'll see if we can unmute you as well. So are you able to read this?
Yeah. So there are many questions there. How does privatization of basic services affect accountability in terms of quality of services, cost to provide service, cost to consumer, inequality in service provision, etc.? How does accountability interact with responsibility in case of service delivery? Is there any easier way, mechanism, terminology to transmit this information to officials, representatives, etc. at a town level? Recommend practical, measurable ways to increase accountability.
And I think the last one might be related to the second question.
What's the right strategy to bring new systems in water and sanitation space, given your learnings from the field?
So you're not on the hook for all of it.
Yeah.
You take your pick up.
So I'll just broadly comment on this privatization question. So we, as an policy implementation researcher, I would save myself getting trapped into this kind of framing of privatization versus public delivery. I would just see that how the sort of what is changing exactly. So it's like, if you look at accountability, as I explained earlier, from accountability point of view, the claim of privatization or introducing new public management is that you make accountability direct, which is citizens can directly demand accountability from the service provider. So that is one thing. And then you make performance outcome based. So earlier, when you have in sort of traditional public administration, you are talking about a rule-based administration. And here you're shifting focus more towards efficiency and outcome like conceptualizing outcome as the performance, or conceptualizing performance as the outcome, service delivery outcomes, right? So that is what is the change. Now, the experience or sort of the kind of, for very long, this relationship, the causal relationship between accountability and performance was assumed to be positive. That accountability would necessarily lead to improved performance or improved service delivery outcomes. And theoretically, it makes sense, right? But the empirical work tells that it's not so simple, right? As what I have explained. So I have given some illustrations only from my this water supply study, but I have studied this solid waste and sanitation as well, which are the direct provision thing, where it's a publicly provided services. But largely, if you look at it from accountability relationship point of view, it is ultimately falling down on the citizen. That where is the standard of the citizen there, like that remediation link which I explained. So I think that would be my response about accountability in terms of quality of service, cost to provide service, etc. There are some kind of questions around cost to services, but that's not part of my study, so I won't comment on that.
Just to one footnote for what you're saying, right? Which is, if it comes down to the citizen, then it also comes down to who that citizen is.
Yes, who that citizen
and so,
is. Yeah.
Based on my surname, caste, wealth, etc.,
all those things would.
My ability to get that remedy.
So this is interesting snippet here. So we often talk about this social accountability, that you have civil society actors and they would help raise the voice, etc. In Nagpur, I could see the clear division between two zones, like 5 zones on this side and 5 zones on this side. The city is divided on the basis of this railway bridge. 5 zones are this side and 5 zones are that side. And these 5 zones on this side, Lakshmi Nagar, Dharampet, these are all sort of, good localities, good in the sense, well-off people live here, flat schemes are coming, markets are there, etc. The other side is an old city. 2 zones have like large number of slums, Satranjipura and Asinagar. So here all the NGOs, the professional NGOs are situated on this side, who have voice. And then the kind of civil society I find on the other side of the city are the activists, right? Who are doing that political society kind of work, that mobilizing people, putting up their demands, routing it through the political actors. And here the professionalized NGOs, they have this disdain for the political roots. They want this invited participation from the administrators, sit with them on the table and do kind of look at governance in a very techno-managerial sense, right? So this, even at that level, I mean, this assumption about social accountability breaks when you go there, that the actors, as you said, the kind of actors who are involved. So the city gets bifurcated based on the invoking actors, so to say. Yeah, and largely, so I don't have any recommendations of improvement in kind of any system. It's very difficult to give recommendations. But yeah, one thing, I mean, I have kind of, I would say, it's layered, complex. And then people would say that all academics or researchers say that what's new, but that's how it is.
Okay, but so let me try to rephrase that question slightly, right? In the work that you've done, places or cases that you found where it's working well, what seems to be the story? I won't say formula. There's a nice, Stefan Dercon has a new book called Gambling on Development, right? Where he says, we don't know the recipe for development, but we know the ingredients. So chalo, ingredients level to answer there.
So just say one thing which I have found working is like wherever there is a political visibility of the service. Say, for example, in both cases, both the services had political visibility.
Sorry, the both
this water supply and solid waste. Solid waste because of Swachh Bharat, and water supply because 24/7 project was publicized and it had to be legitimized. So all politicians spoke about it, etc., etc. So all citizens were aware about what they want, like what they deserve, right? So for this garbage black spots or door-to-door waste collection, immediately people complain and they want it redressed. They don't wait. Similarly for water, I mean, their articulation is like this, that why on one hand you are promising 24/7 and on the other hand you are not even able to give me those 2 drums of water, right? So there where I feel that somewhere when this kind of sort of this bare minimum expectation has been raised, then it becomes very difficult for these kind of interventions not to work, because that is what becomes that has to be done. And in a more kind of institutional design sense, I think that somewhere say this mobile application thing, how do I put it? Because so see, this another example is coming to, and I'll give that thing. So there's this lady I met. She needed more water. I mean, she was ready to pay. Her husband is paralyzed and she needs more water. And she puts that complaint that because I live in a certain locality, and for slums or sort of non-regularized localities, they have this 135 LPCT thing. So there's no metering and all, average bill, this much water. And she is saying that I want a water meter so that I can get more water. Otherwise, I'm having to fetch water from elsewhere. But to register this complaint using this mobile application, she had to wait for 3-4 days. So as she told me that I know how to operate the phone, but my daughter, she leaves in the morning and she carries the phone because that is the only phone which she has, right? It worked. After, like, when she could file that complaint after 4-5 days, in 1 month, she got the water meter and it worked. But on these kind of challenges are also there. So I think the multiple channels will have to survive. It could be phone in, mobile application, manual, etc., etc. And somewhere all of those will have to be in line. I don't know how, because ultimately I go back to administrator, but that becomes how much can you put things on one person's shoulder?
Great. Thanks, Priyank. So I think just to wrap up, 3 thoughts and then 1 announcement, right? One is that four thoughts and then one announcement. So first is the reason that I'm really glad that Priyank was able to join us, and we've sort of been conspiring for this for a while. So I'm glad it's come together. Is because in the work that we do at eGov, one of those questions that we come up with, and I think we don't yet have sort of a good or set answer for, and part of the reason is that this might differ from city to city, is how do you work with local elected officials? What is the involvement? What is the role? Right? If you follow just the official procedures of the city, there might not be one. But then from the ground, we know that it might exist. And so, just as you said, no recommendations there, but I hope that this talk will help people who work in this space also think about this dimension of the work as well. In reverse order. So one of the things that you brought out is how managers are actually doing, instead of their steering role, they are doing a rowing role of going and like fixing stuff. The engineer is actually working as a de facto politician's representative, or not representative, but having to exercise the skills of a politician, etc. Right? One of those, I forget who the quote is from now, but one of those long-standing observations on Indian politics, right, is that anybody that you talk to knows exactly how everybody else is supposed to be doing their job.
So that's I think that is PBM's quote somewhere in lecture he has said.
I distinctly was saying everybody knows how everybody else's job is to be done. Just don't ask them about their job. So I think that jumped to mind from what you were saying, right? The second thing, and this is actually one of the first readings that we had in the GCPP course, right? When you had that picture up of this, the protest and the dhoka hai, dhakka maro mauka hai, right? What stood out to me was that is the elected representative standing there in the middle of the protest. Right? And this is, in some sense, we saw this in the early days when AAP was elected in Delhi, that they were elected and they were on dharna in the streets in Delhi. Right? And if anybody hasn't read it, in some sense, the piece that Dr. Ambedkar wrote when the constitution was adopted is a piece called The Grammar of Anarchy, which talks exactly about this. And he talks about how things that work in popular and mobilization processes versus things that work in a republic and a rule-based system, and how we need to differentiate between the two. So that's my reading reco for the day. Then right at the top with your first couplet, you said, not sure if you're going to give any new insights, maybe everyone is already familiar with, right? So my thesis advisor always used to say, sometimes you already know that you're an island, right? You know that you're on an island. Sometimes you need to swim all the way around to convince yourself. So, okay, there's value even in doing the swim all around. So yes, it's definitely an island, right? Even if there's no new insights, there's more confidence or greater credibility. So with those thoughts, thank you for everyone who's joined us. The announcement on behalf of Savya and our comms team, would you like to make it, or should I? Just telling people about Digitex Conclave.
No, please go ahead.
So we are organizing on the 22nd of June, a day-long event here in Bangalore, but of course you will also be able to join us online, which we are calling the Digitex Conclave. Am I able to put stuff into chat? It's just digitexconclave.com, right? Yes. So I'll just type the site in as well. For anyone who's not already familiar with this, do go check it out.
We'll share the details more.
The site will get like more elaborated.
Yes.
This is
Yes.
save the date kind of site right now. But yeah, we'd love if you could join us there as well. With that, thanks everyone. Thank you again, Priyank.
Thank you.
Okay.